and as horror after horror piled up before me, I find myself almost speechless. Oh, it was all I could say. All I could get past the thick lump of despair that had filled my throat. All I could say with my heart failing in the face of sheer evil. I know. Starting slightly, I looked down at the warrior woman as I still held her in my arms, and saw Asi gazing upon the village as well, tears welling up in her gentle eyes as misery darkened her features. I've already seen this so many times. So many villages taken, good people turned. Swallowing loudly, gulping down the suffering that had welled up in her own throat, Asi looked pleadingly at me. Please don't hate them. What they're doing, it's not their fault. They were just turned and... Turned? Wait, you said something about that before, and Asahi, what's going on here? What are these darklings? Why are they doing this? Why? Why? My voice promptly gave out, for there were simply no words capable of conveying the sheer horror now that I felt. But as I struggled for the words that I could say, Asi issued a tired sigh and nodded. All right, set me down and I'll explain. For a moment, a part of me considered asking if perhaps it would be best if we should move away from the village first. But fuck that. But instead of giving my voice to the sentiment, I just did as I requested, to numbed? Alright. To really do anything other than heed Asahi's words. Oh, I didn't even read the... And so I sat her down so that she was sitting next to me, and which she reached up and took hold of my shoulder so as to steady herself and remain in a seated position. Our world, Burokku, is divided into an overworld and an underworld by the blocks that shape the overworld, make it what it is. The blocks were first created by our ancestors many ages ago, so as to make it simple to craft this world into an ideal one, a world where we could all be happy, and could live in a place that would meet our needs and take care of us. So, wait, you mean these mountains and valleys, and, well, all the rest of it, it's all artificial? I mean man-made? Of course. You don't really think that nature alone would have shaped the blocks, do you? I really don't know what to think. I mean, things have been happening too fast for me to really think about much of anything. Asi gave a slight nod to this. The secret to moving the blocks was lost a very long time ago, but even so, the land gave us everything we needed, and in return we tended to the land in relative harmony. At this point, Asi's expression hardened in a dangerous manner. But all that came to an end when the underworlders found a way to push aside the blocks that kept them confined to the depths. The underworlders, they lived down in the caves and caverns beneath the blocks. In fact, according to legend, the underworld is where the blocks were first created, where the overworld was first planned and eventually created. Okay, but then why are they doing this? Why are they? As I gestured down to the village below, Asi followed my outstretched hand, and her features fell with fresh sorrow. The Darklings aren't underworlders. They may have been transformed by the evil the underworlders have brought forth from the depths of the fiery world below, but once they were overworlders. They were very much like people, like you and me. It was a situation that was about as cliche as it came, a trick that I had seen one too many times than I cared to count in various monster movies or games. I had always found this to be a plot twist that basically had been done to death, but as I looked at the all-too-real nightmare that was now unfolding below, I saw nothing boring about it, or entertaining, or anything other than abhorrent and sickening. So what you said about villages being turned, you meant the villagers as well? Asi gave a tiny sniff before nodding. But what about these underworlders you told me about? If they're the ones who are turning your people into darklings, then where are they? And how many are there? There are 3 of them. At least, only 3 that we've seen. And as for where they are, they should be arriving any second now. Here. Issuing a noise of confusion, I watched as Asi reached into what remained of her own clothing. A moment later, she pulled forth a crystal block that burned with its own inner light. This is a farsight crystal. We can use it to see and hear whatever happens below if we were down there ourselves. And since we're here, you might as well see it for yourself. And what will happen to us all if we can't stop the underworlders? I was about to ask exactly how the crystal worked, but before I could get another word out, the light shining from within the far sight crystal flashed brilliantly, sending up little sparkles that gathered together in midair before resolving into a good-sized orb. And with that, the orb, I found myself able to clearly see the atrocities that were going on down below, as if I was down there among the ravaging darklings. Maybe we should get moving again. Get away from here before anyone... We're in no danger. The flow of the underworld won't be able to reach us here. Once it's unleashed, anyway. We're outside of the village's range of influence. As I pondered these words, I tried to make sense of them, a single tear from falling from one of Asi's gentle eyes. Besides, as long as you're trapped in this world, you're in just as much danger from this world as any native of Burokku, and learning about the Underworlders and their powers could be the only thing that keeps you alive. I was seriously considering debating that idea, but before I could say anything further, Asi's features creased with rage and loathing. Look! There they are! Oh my god. As Asi pointed at the globe of light created by the Farsight crystal, I was quick to follow her outstretched finger, and there I saw a trio of women, seemingly a similar age to myself and Asi, marching boldly through the darklings. Hold on. Oh shit, no. Hold on. Are those? No, those are okay. I was looking at the back, and I thought they were like people that were just hung up against the fences. No, they're slaves. The first thing that took me aback about the trio of girls was the fact that they were completely unlike the Darklings in appearance and manner. While the Darklings lashed out with every evil and animalistic savagery, these three underworlders were marching forward with looks of controlled purpose. In fact, they were so different from the wicked hordes around them that at first I was uncertain if Asi was correct in identifying them as the enemy. But it wasn't long before those doubts were erased. The first thing I noticed as the underworlders marched forward was the way that in every darkling that they closed in on immediately deferred to their presence without fail. No matter what heinous act or bit of cruelty they were in the midst of committing, the instant the underworlders approached, the darklings would part like the Red Sea before them. But even more important was something that would have missed if not for the Farsight crystal, the expressions the trio wore. All three of them made their way through the waning battle and took in the carnage. They did not show any signs of revulsion or horror. Quite the contrary. At least two of them were grinning wickedly, looking as if they were out for a stroll in the park, taking in something exceptionally beautiful. In fact, the girl leading the way, she seemed to be panting and moaning, and the way her hands were moving... What in the... Unable to help myself, I averted my eyes. But even as I did so, Asi nodded sadly. For the Underworlders, our pain and sorrow is the greatest pleasure they could ever experience. Their leader, the one in red, she is Nevia. The one with the crossbow is Adriana. Adriana. There we go. Damn, I'm stupid. And the one like a ghost, she is called Gwenor. Starting somewhat at the naming of the wicked women, I found myself looking through the Farsight crystal once more, revulsion tinged with curiosity now. Curiosity to see what kind of person could orchestrate such monstrous brutalities against the other people. I've seen all kinds of villains and baddies in movies, video games, and more, but in the world of Burokku, evil took the form of three unbearably, indecently beautiful femme fatales that were as exotic as they were alien. Hello. She's got a gun. Okay. Adriana crossbow gun. Look, the hilt looks like a gun. Don't judge me. Adriana carried a crossbow like Asi, and in a very real way, was like a dark reflection of the girl that had been forced to entrust herself upon me. Her dark clothes seemed to enhance the sensuous figure they clung to, concealing that which was forbidden, and making it that much more enticing at the same time. But what set her apart from Asi was the cruelty that stained her face. With every step she took in every evil of the human mind could conceive, evils that were being visited upon the otherworlders without hesitation by the hordes, and she delighted in it all. Overworld. Alright, Gwenor, the one Asi referred to as like a ghost, certainly seemed to be dressed for the part, or at least she would have fit the role in some of the games I had played in the past. Clad in white and black dress, her body seemed to shimmer like it was made of liquid, and her form seemed to shift somewhat as she moved along. her assets jostling and bouncing in ways that would have been impossible in anything flesh and blood, but seemed impossibly enticing. But what really caught my attention about her was when I first got a good look at her eyes and realized that tears were running down her cheeks. And for a moment, I found myself hoping that perhaps these underworlders weren't pure evil, that at least one of them regretted the atrocious acts that they were carrying out. And then I looked down at her mouth and saw that she was smiling as well, a smile of childish, giddy elation and at the debauchery unleashed around her. And I realized that the tears she cried were those of joy. The very thought sickened me. Oh, God. And I felt my insides threatening to rebel as I focused on Nevia, who was clad in crimson and moaned with pleasure with each step she took, walking in a most obscenely provocative manner, pausing to scan her surroundings, ensuing a perverse chuckle that was blended with groans of pleasure. Nevia then looked about when a scream of pure terror was heard, and saw that the source was one of the villagers desperately trying to flee. A wicked smirk quirked her lips as several tendrils of her hair rose up, right before she used her hair to whip a series of fireballs towards the unfortunate villager. She uses her hair to fight? Each and every one of them found their mark, sending the poor girl tumbling to the ground, screaming in pain. Screams that were intensified when a trio of darklings pounced upon the poor woman, ripping apart her clothes and subjugating her to further cruelty. I don't want to know what that means. Nevia issued a deep, throaty laugh as she watched the transformed otherworlders have their way with their latest victim. What voice should I do? Should I just go back to the Loki voice?
Don't worry, girl. You'll be screaming in ecstasy soon enough.
Not liking the way Nevia said those words at all, I watched as Adriana flashed her own grin before looking about the darklings and the defeated villagers.
Now bring us the head of this pitiful village.
I could hear multiple cries of pleas and protest, issued in voices as broken as the people who gave them, but I could ultimately do nothing other than watch this from a relatively safe distance as a pack of darklings dragged one of the villagers, a woman who cried and pleaded and struggled desperately to escape whatever cruelty intended for her. What are they going to do to her? Asi didn't reply immediately, and as I once again looked at her beauteous face, I saw tears rolling down her face. Tears of despair and mourning. And as I looked at her, I saw all the things I felt at being powerless to help those in need. All of the anger and frustration and sorrow and despair, all of it magnified many times over. Watching as this woman was dumped at the feet of the underworlders, Asi choked down a lump of bile which had formed in her throat before speaking. The head of each village has a special ability that allows him or her to coordinate the skills and abilities of all the others under their care. They can communicate with others under their care at great distances, organize and coordinate the efforts of many with ease, and are essential to the ability of any village to function cohesively. Unfortunately, the Underworlders have found a way to turn that gift into a weapon they can use against us. I wasn't certain I understood what he meant, but I had no doubt that I would not like what was about to happen. A certainty reinforced by the sight of the village head dragging herself up to her knees and looking at the underworlders in tearful despair. No, please stop, please. Nevia smiled even more deeply at this, heaving a deep breath that pushed her breast up and outward, straining her outfit as she looked up to the sky.
Oh, no matter how many times I hear you overworlders beg, was that as good for you two as it was for me?
Quenor smiled wanly, tears rolling down her face, while Adriana grinned, a grin that would do a crocodile proud, watching and waiting as the darklings took up station around the underworlders in the village head, and as Nevia walked about to take position behind her prisoner. Then she bent over just enough to speak into her ear, the terrified sobbing woman. No.
Your days in the light are over, and soon you will thank us for that.
Oh, no, the hair! Stop! With that, Nevia stood upright once more, and before my eyes unleashed her braided hair in a serpentine tendril that lashed out, ensnaring the head of the woman. As she cried out in fearful despair, The underworlder's hair were bound about her thighs, calves, and arms, and then whipped about her breasts and hips. As Nevia chuckled cruelty, flames surged down her hair, instantly incinerating large portions of the head woman's clothing. Once more, the head woman screamed, and while I couldn't tell if she had been physically harmed, her terror was all but palpable. But the underworlders grinned that much more, with the ghostly woman Gwenor heaving eager breaths as her body visibly pulsated beneath her dress.
She's all yours, Gwenor. Take her and free these people to the darkness.
With pleasure. Without warning, Gwenor fell down to her knees before the head woman, and then fell upon her as well. Before my eyes, tendrils of living slime materialized from the ghostly underworlder's body, even as Gwenor commanded them forth to spread over the head woman. Gwenor retained her human form, but her appendages enveloped the head woman until much of her body was sheathed by them. As I looked down in a mix of horror and disgust and fascination, the head woman fell to her side, screaming in shock and disgust, making one last effort to save herself. But Nevia's hair held in her gaunt, and Gwenor would not be denied. The woman of living ectoplasm fell upon the head woman's back, her numerous tentacles spreading about her body, cupping her breasts and running about her legs. A situation aggravated when Nevia's hair pulled at her as well, causing her to cry out in shock, manipulating her body and allowing Gwenor to continue ministrations with greater ease.
Go on, give in. You know you want this.
Again the head woman wailed, crying out in protest. And if not for the great distance between us, if not for the fact that I was unarmed and faced with variable legion of darklings, I would have flung myself at the underworlders with all the building fury in my heart. But at the same time, the atrocity I was witnessing was affecting me on a different level, spoken a language of desire and lust, and I could feel my body responding to the abhorrent display in a way that made me feel sickened. I say words weird, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I couldn't stop it from happening, nor could I do anything to avert my eyes from it. All I could do was watch as Nevia pulled at the head of her with her hair, and Gwenor continuing to manipulate the overworlder with her ghostly touch. All the while the villagers looked on in defeat and despair, and the darklings grunted and growled eagerly as Adriana took up station in front of the head woman and bent down to look at in her face.
You can't fight it, you know. You can already feel it rising up in you.
The head woman didn't speak. She simply grimaced helplessly, her eyes screwed tight, and she continued to shudder, shaking her head in desperation, something which prompted Nevia to chuckle cruelty.
Oh, I love it when they say no, when they really mean yes.
The three underworlders laughed in evil delight, watching as Gwenor suffused the poor woman when they had captured. Living ectoplasm was spilled into her, the tentacles of her substance penetrating the overworlder's mouth, even as perspiration rolled down her exposed skin in sheets. The darklings roared and howled with delight at the spectacle, while I felt like I was going to vomit. She's almost there. Just a bit more. Just a bit more.
You like it, don't you? You like the way it feels bubbling up within you. Go on, give in. You want it too. You know you want it.
An instant later, time seemed to grind to a complete halt, leaving everyone and everything frozen in place for a brief second that seemed to last an eternity. Right before the head woman opened her eyelids to reveal burning red eyes, and she grinned a grin of pure, insatiable malevolence before she cried out in sheer ecstasy, "Yes!" Jumping back in shock as the head woman became as every other darkling present, I was then driven to new heights of horror as I watched her cry out in cruel triumph. A cry that was transformed in a geyser of pure darkness that poured forth from the evil that had corrupted her and spilled upon the ground, rapidly spilling over everything and everyone. And as I looked down, each and every last one of the villagers was corrupted within a span of seconds, and a new kind of horror was unleashed as they gave sway to the evil that had overtaken them. Oh no. Damn.